I am Christina Perry, the moderator for today. I am here with director George Fairfield with The Benefit for Billy Hipkins. Welcome, George. Thank you so much for being a part of the Chain NYC Film Festival this year. Such a fantastic film and wonderful story. The first thing I wanted to ask you is exactly how did you come in contact with this story and Billy?
Oh, okay. Well, first, thank you so much for hosting this and inviting me in. Um, Billy, he's just well, actually a longtime friend of my wife, um, and they basically they grew up in the adult life with both of them moving to New York City, and they were going for their acting, singing, dancing kind of career life. So, and then when I came into the picture with my wife, Billy came with her. And just being a filmmaker myself, Billy asked me if I would record one of his shows. He had started making one man uh, shows of his own. And that's kind of how it just started with this piece, that I just started recording him so he could look back at the video and evaluate it and do the rewrites and such.
Wonderful. I was wondering about that, the decision to intercut in that way from the stage performance to then also just kind of the more documentary format we see. I thought it was a really wonderful mix of the two, and it just added so much to who he is. You have Billy in front of us the everyday, and then you have Billy on stage, which is so important to the story that you were telling and that
Uh,
Billy was sharing with us.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was one of the really neat things that since I basically been in on the beginning of from Billy's journey on creating this show, that I thought, how kind of cool would it be that we're doing a documentary on Billy writing this one man show and going on the journey, and then also seeing him on stage. So it was, all these different layers that I was able to really bring in at the same time. So I'm glad you noticed that and got that part of it.
Well, one of the tagline for the Chain NYC Film Festival is original ideas, personal stories, new work, and the personal stories aspect of your film is what really caught our eye and just drew us right into it. Do you know, I'm just so curious on stage when he had his hoop skirt that he made out of Hot Wheels tracks. Does that still exist? Is
Oh
it the
yes,
original? Was that the original that was shown?
it is. Yes,
Wonderful.
and yeah. Uh, uh, when he brought it out the first time, I mean, it gets the same reaction every time. It is such a great moment in the show, and I still laugh every time I watch.
It's just fantastic. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, "Oh my gosh." And you could just imagine this little boy sitting there playing with these things and then going, "No, there's a better way to do this." And creating that. And I thought that was just so incredibly um, beautiful. I really enjoyed that and getting to know him that in that way. I was also watching it and going, maybe we should bring these back for COVID time so that we're all keeping distance from each other properly.
Right?
It really works
It
now.
definitely works. Bring back those big dresses. Yes.
um, so Billy right now, is he currently planning another one-man show? I know it's a little bit difficult in COVID times, but we've had a little bit more time now. So I know a lot of people are writing, creating things, getting ready for when we're back to what our normal used to be. So what is he up to now and what can we look forward to?
Yeah, he's absolutely writing. Has another show that's out and been creating it, and the name just went poof out of my head. But yeah, Billy, he's always writing and creating, and what he comes up with is just uh, uh,
It's very,
unexpected.
it's very, yes, and it's very unique and very special. And for you yourself, George, are you currently working on on any other projects right now, or have things in mind? Did this, I guess, actually, let me ask this: has this film and creating it inspired you for another project or something you want to delve deeper into?
Um, yes, and all of them. Like it's interesting, with the mission of with the Chain Festival and being personal stories. I love personal stories. Um, go to parties or what have you. I'll eventually find myself in a corner with somebody and just be talking to them about their story. And with the thought, I've, with the COVID and everything, and we're kind of shut down, I've gone back to a feature length documentary that I created. It actually did a showing out in California in 2013. And um, I, I've been looking for the formula on this one, and I had certainly going through and seeing just how Billy's story developed through it, and I went back to this one to just delve back into it. But I definitely have other stories that I'd like to get into. And one kind of deals with, um, and it's so interesting that we're in a pandemic right now, but during the AIDS epidemic that of course happened back in the 80s, which is a part of the documentary, the feature length that I'm working on. This gentleman survived it and went on to do all kinds of things in musical theater. But I find it so interesting because it is right now, we think a virus, a cold, but how dramatic well, it changed the AIDS, epidemic changed everything in the 80s, and now how everything is changing again with the COVID virus. That and it'd be interesting in a year from now, because now we're all saying things won't go back to exactly the way it was. Things have changed, and things like that really fascinate me.
Well, we very much look forward to seeing that in the future, and I think it's very relevant. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how people will receive that story you're telling following COVID and what everyone's experienced on a personal level. So, George, thank you so much again for your work and for your Phil Benefit of Billy Hipkins. It was truly a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, and I am here with Robert from Sedona Tom, A Ride Home. And Robert, this is the world premiere. Am I correct? The Chain NYC Film Festival is the world premiere of this?
This is correct, yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that privilege. And we're so excited to have this premiere for you at our festival. I have to ask, how does a guy from Jersey meet a Sedona Tom?
Well, it's an interesting story, to say the least. I actually met him on a cross-country journey with a friend of mine. We got in the car from Jersey and we drove all the way to Los Angeles. And en route, we stopped in Sedona because my friend had told me about it and how it is the most beautiful place on earth. And we stopped there and we were out one night at a local bar, and there's really no Ubers or Lyfts or anything out there for the most part because it's pretty secluded. It's pretty out there in the middle of nowhere. And we asked the bartender at the bar we're at how we could get home, and he referred us to Sedona Tom. And once we noticed, we saw the business cards out of the bar, and then it clicked because we had seen the business bars all over, or the business cards all over town, because they're at every bar, they're at every restaurant. So he's the guy to call when you need a ride home. So we called him, and he picked me up from this bar late at night. I had a few drinks and we were talking, and I had a 10-minute ride home, and it ended up being an hour, hour and a half of just us sitting in the car and him telling me his whole life story, pretty much everything you see in the movie. And I just thought right away that this was something that we needed to film, and this guy had a story that we needed to put out there, you know? So I asked him if he wanted to make a movie, and he said yes. And then I went to Los Angeles and I raised the money, and I did all the pre-production, and then I went back out there and I shot it, and here we are.
Well, I am so glad that you decided to make a movie on Sedona Tom, because it's absolutely fantastic. He's so fascinating. And I have to say, as someone who grew up in Arizona and who knows Sedona, and also all these kind of weird towns and characters that you come in contact with, because there's a certain, I don't know what it is about the desert, but there's like a certain kind of culture
Yeah,
that is bred
there's a
there. And
vibe out there. It's different. It's
there
a different
is.
world. Oh, so you're
So
from Arizona, so you know it. You
I
know Sedona
I
then.
do,
Okay.
I do, and
Cool.
I also know people like Sedona Tom. Like
Right.
I haven't met him before, but I've met him, you know, and
Mhm.
I thought you just captured that so well in your style of filmmaking. And
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about that, because I know you have experience in doing commercials, and I thought the visual storytelling of this, of you know, the beautiful landscape that is the deserts of Arizona and Sedona, and then also how you would attach the camera onto the car and intercut back and forth of having him tell stories. I thought it worked so well for who he is and this really free spirited guy,
Right.
and also what this whole movie was about.
Well,
So
thank you. That means a lot. That means, well, that was definitely the motive. So that means a lot to kind of capture that free spirited attitude through the visuals. Absolutely.
so one of the other questions I had was, all right, how did you get people's permission?
To film them?
Yeah, to film them, particularly when, they've had a few,
Yeah.
I would honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not surprised that
Uh,
those people were like, because I know a lot of people were like, they'd be totally down with it out
yeah.
there, and you have a couple drinks, so you're more loose. But how did you get their permission? And has anyone given you any pushback after it being released, being like, I'm really uncomfortable with being in this film now because I'm
Well,
tipsy?
we everyone signed an NDA. Every single face you see on screen signed off and said that we could use them. But yeah, about 99% of people that we asked or to sign it or film were down to be filmed. No one gave us a hard time. Everyone was really excited and happy that we were there. And everyone was happy we were making the movie about Tom, because everyone knows who Tom is. So a lot of people wanted to be involved just because it had to do with him. So a lot of the locations we had access to, a lot of the bars and all this stuff, we only had access because of Tom himself. And also just driving around and filming and in the middle of the street sometimes, just holding down traffic, just ourselves. And Tom knew the cops, so it was never really a problem, locking locations down or anything like that. So we were just driving around for 2 weeks, filming everywhere and anybody with no restrictions whatsoever. It was a blessing. It was like Sedona was our little, I mean, not our little, our big set that we just had full access to go wherever we want, whenever we wanted, and just film. I mean, it was a small crew for the most part. I mean, I was pretty much just me and a sound guy for the most part, just running around with me and the camera and in Tom's van, just driving around and capturing it as we go. So yeah, no one gave us a hard time. No pushback. Just people after we had shown the film. I had multiple people who were just upset they weren't in it more than they were. They wanted to be in it more. That was pretty much the only pushback, is they were upset they didn't have enough screen time. Yeah.
That's great. You gave you gave him the bug.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Created monsters out there
I
now.
did. I mean, now I talk to Tom all the time still. And literally every single time he calls me, he says the same thing. He's like, you got to get back out here. We got to keep filming. There's more movies to be made. There's more of a story out here. You got to come back. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get the sequel soon.
Yeah, that'll be fun, or
Yeah.
another inspiration from that.
Yeah.
So, do you have if audience would like to see more of your work, where could they see that? And do you have any upcoming projects? I know obviously right now in COVID, a lot of things are on hold, but where
Right.
can we find more of your stuff?
So you can find my stuff on Vimeo. Pretty much all my work is on there. It's vimeo.com/Robert Emilio Proto. And if you just Google Robert Emilio Proto, then you'll pretty much find it. It'll direct you there, and you'll find Sedona. You'll find a lot of my commercial work that you were mentioning. And as far as upcoming projects, a lot of the stuff I'm doing right now is commercial work. I'm staying busy producing commercials, producing a lot of live stream events actually because of COVID. So that's really popular. As far as my own like personal projects, I am working on a feature film, a script that I'm writing and then going to produce. And yeah, that's gonna be the big one, the next personal project. So
And
that's about it.
that's clearly starring Sedona Tom.
Absolutely, a cameo, if nonetheless, if he can't get the lead, then he's going to be in it somehow. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us here at the Chain NYC Film Festival and for your film Sedona Tom, A Ride Home.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy that you guys were able to accept it for its world premiere. It means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. And I am here with Holly Laren with Are You There, Andy? Welcome, Holly. It's so wonderful to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Holly, I got to know, and I know you kind of said this in your film too, but at this point, is Andy Kaufman alive? Is he? I mean, do you really feel that? Are we feeling him? Is this his time when he's coming with 2020? Is it May 2021 that he's actually going? We're gonna see him again, and that was like, because I really kind of feel like it would fit after the after the year we've all been having.
Yeah, you know what? I'm calling it 2021. Andy's coming back.
I have to tell you, I thought this documentary was just so well put together. It was this great exploration of Andy Kaufman and the the suspicions surrounding his death and if he actually really died or if he faked it. But then also you have this exploration of yourself and you as an individual and kind of exploring your own path as an artist as well. And so I was curious, why, like, what really drew you to telling his story, and was your path of an artist, was that always kind of something you wanted to have within this film, or was it something that started happening as you went along with the project?
That's a great question. So I made this documentary as sort of a fan letter to Andy Kaufman, and I knew I couldn't write a fan letter without including how much he has meant to me personally. And what really drew me to Andy was I just love artists who push the boundaries and are so out there. I'm really attracted to them. I mean, I have this whole background in drag, and I really love it when you're watching someone and they're challenging the medium or they're challenging your sense of reality, or they're just challenging something that you thought that you held dear. And so Andy Kaufman for me was just a really great example of an artist who pushed the boundaries, who inspired people and made them want to be different and do their own thing. And I thought he would be a really great guide in my first year after college and trying to figure out who I wanted to be as an artist.
Wow. So in going off of that there too, have you continued the theme of being booed off stage and wanting to include that within your acts?
Yeah, hopefully people will boo this documentary. That would be awesome.
I don't think so. I'm sorry to say it's a little too well made for that. So you'll have to try less next time. But I thought that was I enjoyed that aspect of you being like, I enjoyed it and it was fun, being booed.
Oh my gosh, no, totally. It was so freeing. Like I grew up in this acting environment where there was so much pressure to be perfect. And then throwing that out the window, it's a relief, honestly. It was awesome.
So with your drag persona that you have, are those tattoos yours? Because that's
Oh
some
my
beautiful
God.
artwork.
How awesome would that be? No.
I had to ask because I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, that's a commitment. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. We spent about 3 hours before that show, me and 3 of my friends. I had bought maybe a mountain of fake tattoos and we were just putting them on one by one. It was a feat within itself, but it was great.
Oh, how fun. I love it.
Yeah, I did not wash them off immediately. I was like, no, I'm going to have these on for a few days.
Good. Good for you. And so also within the film, as we're journeying on, you find a clown who there it seems like, and has these ambiguous answers where like as they're popping up on the screen, which I really liked how you did that with the Google searches, and we were kind of on this journey of your research with of Andy Kaufman with you, and kind of that process. I liked that. And I have to ask, is there a road trip in your future to go and see this guy live and to just, who knows?
I would love that. That would be stupendous.
I mean, after the
just to see
pandemic.
him in of himself, like he has a great act. So I journey down. Absolutely.
Will there be a part 2 of this documentary then, maybe?
Oh, only time will tell.
And Holly, where can we find more of your work?
Oh, well, you can find me on Facebook. You can visit my Andy Kaufman website, and hopefully in the next year or so, I'm going to have a new documentary out all about the drag queens of South Africa.
How cool. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to see that. And please, please submit that to our 2021 festival, because that sounds amazing. And Holly, thank you again for this work. If there's anyone who can explain what's going on right now, I feel it would be Andy Kaufman. So Andy, if you're out there, please come, tell us, help us. Welcome. I am here with Frank Leone, who is the producer of The Carousel Man. Welcome, Frank. And
thank you, Christina. Thank you to Chain Film Festival 2020. Very good. Very cool.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So one of the things within our festival, one of the taglines is personal stories. And obviously, this is a very personal story, Sal and his passion project of building this carousel. And it really stuck out to us. I just thought it was a wonderful film that showed the power of friendship, him and his relationship with James, that lifelong friendship that started when they were kids. I felt it was so beautifully captured on film, and you really felt this connection to them. And I wanted to ask, because Sal is no longer with us, but I am sure his carousel is, and his legacy. And I was wondering if you could share with us how his legacy has continued to live on and where the carousel is today.
Okay, that's a good question. So we don't have to worry about spoiling it since he's passed away. But his daughter and the mother and the daughter sold the carousel, and at first we were like, "Oh no!" And we found out that they sold the carousel to a place in Oregon. I don't know the exact name, but he works on real live carousels and miniature carousels. So we were thankful that it went there. We were hoping that we could photograph that whole transition, but it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
But they needed the money. It's a long story. They needed money. Things were tough. And so that's where the carousel is right now. But we'd like to eventually have footage of what happened to it too, as well.
So the film, in your eyes, it's continuing on, and you guys also, you continue to have this film grow, the story progress and continue over the years too, just to see.
Yes, we would like to. I would like to. I don't know if the other people want to, but I would like to at least show other people who might be wondering what happened, where it is now.
Well, he is such a unique individual, and I thought that it was wonderful to capture within this piece too, how his passion and just kind of overcame him, consumed him, and you guys touch on that in the difficult topic of how it was impacting his marriage, his family, his work life. I mean, my goodness, he really became like the mad scientist obsessed, in the laboratory and having his creation. But I thought it was just a beautiful moment when James could kind of step in and help ground him again, let him know things would be okay, give him a hand. And you could see that too, you could see, which I think many of us can relate to in life, where we have that special person or that friend, that family member who, when times get like that for us, they kind of calm us and ease us down. So I'm glad to hear that his legacy is continued, and that the carousel is with another one of his kind who's so passionate.
Yes. I'm happy too, because at first I thought they just gave it away, but it also turned out that the carousel was sitting in that garage, and the elements, it was protected in the garage, but time was going by,
Mm.
and it was affecting it. So it was good that it went to somebody who will fix it up and make it look the way it looks in the film. So
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, I've always enjoyed carousels, and I think there's a wonderful history and nostalgic purpose, to them, and they're just beautiful. But this film in particular gave me an even greater appreciation for all the mechanics that go into it and the artistry that
yes,
Sal taught himself completely. And I just thought that was incredible and a testament too to what a brilliant individual he was.
yes,
And
yes.
and I was wondering, in knowing his family, are those some of the traits that you've also seen among his daughters?
There's a long story to this, Christina, but
Uh-huh.
I never met Sal, unfortunately. The footage, the movie that you see, I had to, it's a long story, but about 5 years ago, my Anton Evangelista, the director, was in what I call a depression, and things weren't looking good for him. And I asked him, I said, whatever happened about that movie you made where that crazy guy was building a carousel? So he literally goes to his closet and he pulls out the footage. And I said, do you mind if I look at the footage? And he goes, no. And I'm looking at the footage and I go, Tony, there's something here, man. I go, I know you can't see it. And I'm not a filmmaker. And I'm like, wow, I think you should make a short film about this. And that's how it happened. So I actually, like you, got to meet Sal through the movie. I never met the man. I met his daughter. I met Danielle. I met his wife. But I had never met this man. And I'm like you. I'm the same way. This is the first time I'm meeting him. It's through this film. And I
Wow.
was like, when I saw the film, I was almost obsessed like him. I was obsessed that I had to get Tony to make this short film. I said, you got to do this. So that's how it kind of went, you know.
Well, that was actually my next question. I was wondering what your connection was with this film and with Sal, and that's really beautiful. So I kind of feel like Sal's spirit is like continuing to live on in his friendship with James, because you then, when your friend was in a tight situation, you then came to them to kind of re-inspire them over a passion that they have and to make this happen,
Yes.
and to be there for them. So that's very powerful.
I
I'm
think
so glad
Sal
you
did it
shared
because
that.
I up to that point, I swear to you, I was like, oh, yeah, all right, he's a crazy guy. And then when I saw the footage, I'm like, whoa, 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 this is not just some regular dude, uh, you know, who's a little cuckoo. He's really like a kind of a genius. Like I
Mhm.
could never, I'm looking at I couldn't even know how to make a horse, let alone make a carousel, you know.
Oh, I know. It's
So
just incredible. I was watching it all too. I'm like, I have no idea how you even begin to teach yourself any of this.
no, and I appreciate your words because the wake that I just came from was James Morricone's mom. And James Morricone was like, oh, you're going to talk about it? I go, yeah. And he goes, Sal still lives. So Sal is still living through this and this communication that you and I are having.
Absolutely, he does. And shout out to James too for just being the best friend anyone could ever have. I loved hearing about their stories and their growing up together. And you could just see, James's soul coming across the screen there of what kind of an individual he is as well.
I'm
Um,
glad, Christina. I'm glad because I didn't know if anybody was going to see that, you know.
well, I felt it was quite clear, and a great message too of the importance of, you know when you hear that's a calling in your life, going for it, just
Yes,
absolutely going for it, and seeing where it leads you. And it's very possible, as we're seeing and talking about now, that it'll carry on and start having this ripple effect that you may have absolutely no idea about. So I think that's
that would be great. That would be fantastic.
I just want to wrap up here, and I wanted to say, Frank, thank you so much for also continuing to be a friend to everyone, and to Tony, and continuing Sal's legacy and pushing this through. It was just such a unique story about a truly unique individual, and I'm so glad that we have it within our festival.
And I want to thank you, Christina, not only for taking the time to interview me, but for the Chain Film Festival showing it, because there's so many films. Like they could have just said, this old guy with his carousel, but you guys chose it. So I feel very happy and excited because I had put a short film in last year and you guys accepted it and nobody was accepting it.
Hmm.
So I think the Chain Film Festival takes chances with other people's films that these highfalutin festivals may not touch,
We do like to pride ourselves on just, we like to go for really personal stories, and sometimes there's just a certain essence that stands out to us and that we want to show to audiences. So thank you. I appreciate
Very
that.
good.